The Chicago Bears head into week 4 of the 2019 NFL season at a record of 2-1. What is going on, y'all? Fox Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL, talking Bears, as I do so often on this channel. So if you're new, welcome. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe by hitting the big red subscribe button down below, folks. You don't want to miss out a ton of content on this channel. I do Bears previews and recaps, as well as a bunch of other NFL stuff and NBA as well. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, turn on the bell icon to be notified every time I drop a new video, which I do so very often. And finally, follow me on my social media links down below and on the screen for my Twitter, my Instagram. You guys can reach out to me, ask me questions, debate, whatever it is. I'm here for you guys. You guys see the title for the video, giving you guys my preview for the Bears opponent this week. And it is none other than the division rival Minnesota Vikings. So Bears are coming off a big victory on Monday Night Football against Washington Redskins in week 3, but that is now behind us, and I already broke down that game and a recap of it, so you guys can go check that out in my recent videos. So let's talk about the game plan for this week. Who do I have winning this matchup, giving you guys my score prediction, giving you guys my keys for this game, and everything else in between. So let me start off with a few numbers before I get into my full analysis for this game. So the Bears are in fact favored in this matchup. They are favored by 3 points. Okay, they are at home, so this game will indeed be played at Soldier Field. And the over-under for this game is a disgusting 38 points, folks. That is low scoring. You thought like last week when I predicted that score, or 2 weeks ago against the Broncos, was low scoring. I mean, Vegas thinks this game is going to be an absolute sloth fest, okay? So a very low over-under. We'll talk a little bit about what I have as my score prediction. But the Bears are in fact favored, like I mentioned, and 3 points usually is a default that Vegas gives to whoever the home team is if they feel like the matchup's even. And that is exactly what Vegas is telling me here. And I like to go through these numbers because, again, Vegas makes a lot of money off a lot of people every year, so they kind of know what they're talking about here. So whenever, obviously, they put out the lines and whatnot, I tend to take a look at them before I make my call. So, like I said, they are basically saying this is an even matchup. Both teams are 2-1. The only reason the Bears are favored is because they're at home. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk a little bit about the Minnesota Vikings, who are, like I mentioned, 2-1 on the year. They beat the Atlanta Falcons in week 1 at home in Minnesota, which was pretty impressive, 28-12. I mean, Matt Ryan and company had a very, very tough outing in that one. Kirk Cousins only threw the ball like 10 times, so they have become a completely run-dominant team, the Minnesota Vikings have. I'll get into that also in a second. But real quickly, week 2, they did lose to the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau, 21-16. And this game was fairly close until Kirk Cousins decided to give the Packers the W, and I'll get into Kirk Cousins also as well. And then finally, they did win last week in a blowout victory against the Oakland Raiders, 34-14. That was at home in Minnesota. So 2-1, and again, the one loss is against a tough Green Bay team that we also lost to. So both the Bears and the Vikings both lost to the Packers, okay? And the Falcons are a decent team, so that's a good win. So let's talk about the formula that this Minnesota Vikings team has put forth before I get into my keys. And like I alluded to, the Vikings have decided we are running the football. They're establishing the run, and that's it, okay? They are giving Dalvin Cook all the carries he can handle, folks. I mean, he is getting an absolute workload at this point. They're just putting the ball in his belly, and they're saying we're going to ground it, and we're going to keep the ball away from the other team, and we're going to limit, turnovers by keeping the air out of the football. And what does that mean for Kirk Cousins? He doesn't throw a lot of passes, okay? Week 1 threw 10 passes, and week 2, when he did throw a lot of passes because they got behind against Packers, he threw like 32 passes, ended up making some boneheaded mistakes, had a couple of bad interceptions, and then week 3, they said, all right, we'll dial in it back again. We're not letting Kirk Cousins throw, even though they're paying him $84 million guaranteed, but I guess they don't want him to throw. 21 throws is what he had in game 3, and they ended up winning that game. So the formula for the Vikings is very simple. They're saying, we're running the ball with Dalvin Cook. We're taking the air out of the football. Kirk Cousins is not passing unless we absolutely have to. We've got a ferocious defense that's going to, get turnovers and get us in good field position. So it's actually kind of similar to the Bears in terms of both teams have very good defenses. I would take the Bears defense over the Vikings, but the Vikings defense is no joke. And then in terms of their quarterbacks, I'm not saying the Bears are doing what the Vikings are doing, where they're taking the air out of football completely and not letting the quarterback throw. But for the most part, they want to limit the turnovers, of course. And they do kind of want to run the football, though Matt Nagy has had some issues with that, and I'll get into it. So that's sort of the scouting report on the Minnesota Vikings and how they've been doing so far through 3 games. And now let's talk about my keys for this game. Let's start with, of course, key number 1. And folks, it's not going to surprise you. I'm telling you right now, you should have already expected this. Can you stop Dalvin Cook? I'm looking at the Bears defense right now. And again, I shouldn't be, looking at the Bears defense and saying, oh my God, can you guys do something? Because they've been very impressive. I'm just saying, listen, this is the biggest formula to beating the Minnesota Vikings. And you guys see on the board here, I've got Dalvin Cook's numbers, okay? So take a look against the Atlanta Falcons, 21 carries for 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, okay? Then against the Packers, 20 carries for 154 yards and a touchdown. Then against the Raiders, 16 carries, which would have been 20 had it not been a blowout, 110 yards and a touchdown. Folks, he's leading the league in rushing at 375 total yards, averaging about 125 yards a game at a clip of 6.6 yards per carry. Basically, Dalvin Cook is destroying. Now, he hasn't faced a defense like the Bears so far, okay? The Packers defense has improved, certainly, and it's the best defense that they've played out of the 3 games they've played, but it's still not comparable to the Bears defense. So I am confident that Dalvin Cook will not have as much success. But if Dalvin Cook does to the Bears defense what he's been doing to these other teams, I mean, we're going to have a tough time, obviously. So this is the key to stopping, the Minnesota Vikings, which is stopping Dalvin Cook, okay? You know how a lot of teams have been saying, oh, we're going to let number 10 beat us, 10 being Mitchell Trubisky on the Chicago Bears. I want, Kirk Cousins to beat us, okay? If we get beat, let it be Kirk Cousins. I am not getting beat by Dalvin Cook and this run game, okay? It's very simple. The Bears should have a game plan to stop Dalvin Cook, because if Minnesota establishes the run, that opens up the play action, that gives them the ball and doesn't let the Bears offense get it, so they play keep away. It's just a big, big issue if Dalvin Cook is able to have success. So we need to stop him. Let's move on to key number 2, and it's actually a repeat of one of my keys from last game. Can you run the damn football, Matt Nagy? And again, I'm going to keep highlighting my boy, David Montgomery. Hashtag free David Montgomery, and get this man 20+ carries, please. Okay, so why am I saying run the football against the Minnesota Vikings? Because you might think, the Vikings obviously are a very good defense, and you're not going to have a lot of success. Well, here's the thing. The one loss that the Vikings had against the Packers, Aaron Jones ran all over them, okay? Aaron Jones had 23 carries for 116 yards, okay? And I believe he had a touchdown as well. Aaron Jones, to me, he's a good, decent running back. I think David Montgomery's better, okay? Again, maybe not right now, but in the future, certainly, potential-wise. But even right now, I could probably make that. Aaron Jones is nice, but David Montgomery, folks, good things happen when you give David Montgomery the football. That's why I'm going to keep hammering this point. Hashtag free David Montgomery. Matt Nagy refuses to give this man major carries. We traded away Jordan Howard for a reason. We drafted David Montgomery for a reason. Use this man, okay? And like I said, even if we're not having success with David Montgomery, you can then turn over to the passing game. You can always go to the passing game. It's not going anywhere. And I know that's Matt Nagy's forte, but let's please try to establish the run and follow the formula for success. This is what good teams do. Look at other teams and what they had success with and utilize that against your opponent. So if Aaron Jones can do that, David Montgomery can do that against the Minnesota Vikings. So please run the damn football. And finally, my third key in this matchup, not as important, but still a key for me, is get other weapons involved besides Allen Robinson, okay? And this, to me, is something that I've been meaning to bring up, and I think now is the perfect time. Because here's the thing with the Minnesota Vikings, they've got a very good secondary, led by Xavier Rhodes, who I expect to obviously cover Allen Robinson, our #1 wide receiver. And Xavier Rhodes is a very good corner, okay? So he is more likely than not going to get the better of Allen Robinson. That's not to say A-Rob isn't talented. Certainly could get his, okay? It could be a 50-50 battle. But point being is, if Xavier Rhodes is in fact able to take away, Allen Robinson, can we see the other guys on offense, please? Okay? And this is partly on Mitch, and I've been hammering this point too in my previous videos. Mitch Trubisky locks onto Allen Robinson way too much, okay? He did it last game again when he threw the interception in the end zone to Josh Norman, who's looking to hit Allen Robinson. I know a lot of people are saying that was miscommunication, that Mitch was throwing a fade route and Allen Robinson was running something else. And I get it, okay? But you still can't make that throw. And Mitch locks on to Allen Robinson. Now, again, I'd rather have my quarterback lock onto a #1 receiver than someone else. But point being is, that makes you as a team predictable, one-dimensional. As a quarterback, that makes you easy to read. And that's been sort of the issue with Mitch through the first 2 games. And then the third game, he was able to correct it, and then he kind of fell back into that. So let's get the other guys involved. Where is Anthony Miller? Can I see Anthony Miller? Can we find him? I'm looking for Anthony Miller. I can't seem to find this man. I think he's got 1 catch on the year. I think it was the one last game, for 17 yards on that shallow crossing route. Please, Anthony Miller. We drafted him high last year. I loved him. I had him as one of my breakout guys on this Bears roster to build off last year when he had 7 touchdowns. And Anthony Miller barely is getting used. Now, again, I don't know what's going on. My only sort of guess is there's some sort of injury that the Bears are not letting on. But there's no reason Anthony Miller should not be getting involved at this point and getting this shut out this much, okay? Taylor Gabriel, loved what I saw from him last game with the 3 touchdowns. But he is in concussion protocol at the time of this video that I'm making. So we don't know if he's going to play against the Vikings. It's a short week for the Bears. So like I said, can we get Anthony Miller? Can we get Trey Burton involved? Can we get Tariq Cohen involved a little bit more? Jawan Wims, I like him a lot. Can we get him the football a little bit, please? David Montgomery as well, but like I mentioned with that second point. So to me, I need this offense to not be as one-dimensional in the pass game with just Allen Robinson. Now, we went in the right direction with Taylor Gabriel last game. Let's build off of it. I want to see a breakout game from a guy like Anthony Miller or Trey Burton. So there you have it, my 3 keys for the Bears in this game against Minnesota Vikings. Again, folks, as far as who do I have winning this game, I do have the Bears winning this game. Now, that is not because, obviously, I'm a homer or anything like that. No, all my picks are objective, folks. Trust me. If I believe the Bears are going against an opponent that is superior, that they will lose to, I will pick the Bears to lose. But I believe they can win, 1, because they're at Soldier Field. That's really the biggest reason in here. If this game was in Minnesota, I may lean towards the Vikings side of things. I have a lot of respect for the Vikings, folks. They're a good football team. I'm telling you right now, when they run the football and they're able to, pound it down your throat, and they're able to, just play good defense, and they're able to play keep away, especially in Minnesota when they're at home, they are very hard to beat. So I have a lot of respect for the Vikings, but I'm going to pick the Bears to win this game because, like I said, they're at Soldier Field, they're at home, they should be able to pull this one out. As far as my final score, I will say Vegas just has too low of a total. I think we'll see a little bit more offense than that. I'm going to go with a final score of 24-21. Bears win against the Minnesota Vikings.